think there's truly terrible drivers all around because I'm from back east and I felt like there were terrible drivers there. So
that's good to hear. One of the things with insurance, and we hear people who have moved here, just all the terrible drivers. I'm like, well, they're all from like your state.
Exactly, we're all
and
transplants.
My state.
Yes, there's so many transplants. When I hear someone was born and raised in Arizona, those are the unique ones.
Exactly. They're the minority for sure.
Let's talk tails.
Today's guest says she has built a successful career off the foundation of caring, spending nearly a decade in the elevator industry caring for her customers, sales team, and the elevator mechanics who keep elevators and escalators safe. In 2016, she made the jump to insurance with the aspiration of owning her own State Farm agency. There, she learned the importance of protecting her customers through insurance. And in May of 2019, her dream became a reality, and her State Farm business is the current Micro Business Award honoree with the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce and has been named Business of the Year by Navo Phoenix. She gets to run her business alongside her husband, something I can relate to pretty well, and together they have 3 fur kids. It's Suzi Glover of Suzi Glover State Farm. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being my insurance agent.
Like I said, it's a thrill to see you keep growing and being able to grow with you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And, I'm going to take it back because I had no idea about the elevator industry. Tell me a little bit about how did you get involved with elevators?
It was actually through a way previous relationship I was actually in an association management, and one of our members, because of relationships, always been my thing, my jam. When I was leaving there, he said, I think you'd be great in a world of elevators and escalators. I knew nothing about them, just throughout years of learning and knowing building owners, but then also, again, just in being able to provide a service that protects building owners.
So with elevators, we don't really think too much about it, right?
No, exactly. I thought it was, it all just started and ended at the push button, and there's a lot of misnomers with it. Whether or not, them being held up with the movies, being held up by one cable and that cable being shut down, total mythbusters on that one. It's such a redundant and safe system. So I learned a lot over my years.
I was about to say that Mission Impossible scene where the elevator falls and crushes the guy. That was, growing up, the most scariest scene. I wasn't scared of horror movie things. It didn't feel realistic, but elevators and an elevator falling, I was like, oh my gosh, that is terrifying.
Yep. Elevators fall up, not down. Yep. See? Busters.
That is crazy. Okay. Well, I just learned something new today. Elevators fall. I don't even know how that is defying gravity right there. That's so interesting.
It's a whole weighted system. Yep.
Interesting.
So if that were to happen, they would fall up, not down.
So tell me, one day you said, I'm done with going up and down and I'm ready to go into just insurance. Most people don't find insurance exciting. So tell me, why did you decide to make your life about insurance?
I love the service and protection it provides. And it was something I could take from my world in elevators, saving our business owners thousands of dollars if their elevators broke. That's what the service did. Mm-hmm. And insurance did the same. And a lot of what I had learned and known about insurance was from my own State Farm agent. Mm-hmm. And so when I thought, okay, getting into insurance, they definitely taught me a lot in how to protect everything that I was working so hard for. I want to do that and be able to do that 24/7. And not only do that 24/7, but be able to go with you if you're moving from one side of the valley to the next. And as your family grows and, as you launch businesses. And so I just had kind of saw probably just the needy person in me too, of I need my customer relationships and I get to stay with them. And so while protecting them and being able to be their personal superhero, if something goes wrong, saying, no, that $1,000 piece of equipment that you have, thousands of dollar piece of equipment that you have, you're not going to have to pay for that out of pocket. We can go ahead and take care of that for you. Mm-hmm. So it's not slowing you down in your growth, because life's hard. Yeah. Business is hard. And so being able to make that not hard, that brings me joy and passion.
Definitely. When most people, I think of State Farm, that there's car insurance and home insurance, but what are all the different, insurances do you offer to people?
We offer, that was another thing that I learned a lot from. We offer, to your point, home, auto, but then the business insurance as well. which is very near and dear to my heart. But then life insurance, which truly that kind of shows you, again, where superhero powers come in, of someone unexpectedly passes away and being able to provide benefit to their loved ones so that they can grieve, they can heal, and it doesn't have to be a major slowdown in their lives to them or having to add on an extra burden of going and finding a job prematurely or doing a GoFundMe, those types of things. And also, thankfully, having the backing of State Farm as well. When we call in for a death claim, it's as if that whole department shuts down and that's their moment. They know that that's their moment to serve and make sure that our customer is taken care of, that their loved ones that are left behind are taken care of, and getting that benefit as their loved ones who put their insurance on their life is put into place.
Yeah, one thing I love is that, State Farm, it's a name that we've all have heard of, that it feels so big. But yet I can pick up the phone and call you and call your team members and so you really do have that, like, their marketing's pretty on point with Like a Good Neighbor, because truly, like a good neighbor, I can call you and say, we bought a place for a new studio and I need to have it insured. And within the day it was done.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the things that was attractive to me going with State Farm. I do have the security of corporate. However, my own business to direct and serve my customers and be there for them as they need us. And so, yeah, they can pick up the phone, as you said, they can, give us a call, they can send us a text message. They can, if we need to see face to face and they need to look at their things, we can meet virtually, as well as in the office. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, and your office is definitely very fun. Sometimes you have some of those fur babies for kids hanging around. And so tell me a little bit about, what their names are and who are they. And I would guess, normally I ask people, what's your favorite animal with a tail? I think it's pretty obvious.
Well, yes, ours don't have tails, though.
There's a stub. There's like a little nub.
Yes, they do have their nubs. We've got 3 French bulldogs that are in the office at any one time. It's kind of by design, because they're our welcoming committee. Walmart has their greeters. We've got Ami, Rudy, and Louise to greet you at any one time as you come to the office. And so they are thrilled when customers come in. It's their favorite part of the day.
Yeah, they're so cute. I always love it. And they just look like so lazy too. They just sprawl out on the little State Farm carpet in the front.
That is one thing for sure. And yes, they are good timers for our meetings with customers, because as usually about 20, 30 minutes into a conversation, you'll hear them snoring. And so insurance isn't all of that. I love it, but not everybody else does, including Ami, Louise, or Rudy.
Oh, that's so funny. And you've done such a good job of building a team. And so for those who are looking to grow their business, what advice do you have to, finding good team members and building a team like you have?
I've been very fortunate with the team I have. A couple of them have been with me since year one, and growing with the business. Others have just, acquired along the way. We've been introduced to along the way. But I would say for business owners is always looking and always meeting new talent. And, if you sometimes, and I think it's kind of a luxury as a business owner, if you don't necessarily have, you're at capacity, but you have somebody talented that's introduced to you, adding them on, because if they're selling, they're going to complement your business and your culture, which then takes you even further. And it also kind of identifies maybe those that aren't necessarily performing and really aren't complementing your business or the culture. And when you are on a limited budget, it helps you determine that really quick. So with me, I always want to coach up, not out.
Yeah.
So sometimes that kind of helps that decision there, because sometimes I can try to coach up too much.
Yeah. Excellent though. But it comes from your caring heart, it's because you do care about people. And so you're seeing that, people need to be coached. And so you're just coaching them up.
Yeah. I do definitely. That's why I got into business. I wanted to be able to empower others to have those strong relationships, basically capitalize off of what they are, build their talents so that they can be successful and do with it what they will. One of our team members just became a first-time homeowner. And as a business owner, that brings me huge joy that we were able to help her with that, help develop her professionally to where her success, she was able to fulfill her dreams.
And I'm hopefully insured it with State Farm.
And there's that too. Absolutely.
That's great that she already knew who to talk to and where to go.
Yep. And actually put her own policy in place. So then we didn't have to do the extra work.
Oh, lovely. So, in your bio, you mentioned that you are a recent award winner, or you were a NABO Business of the Year award, but you mentioned that you really cherished that award. What makes that award so special to you?
As a lot of NABO members may have heard, I've been a NABO member since I've been a business owner. It truly did come as I became a business owner. I was signing my lease and I found Ronit Erman is my landlady.
A neighbor.
and neighbor. And so I think I became a member the first week that I was launching my business.
Wow.
And so from NABO, through their mentoring program, it helped me grow my business, get in touch with people like you of different ways to market my business that I would never even know. So it definitely gave me that advantage. And I think it helped my business grow a lot faster. And so being awarded Business Owner of the Year, one, it gives you that feel good that, you're doing something right. But the mere fact that it's by NABO who helped you do that, it definitely makes it feel so much better, so much sweeter.
Excellent. And you are very involved in NABO. Why do you choose to take that extra step, not just be a member, but be a board member?
I learned so much by being a board member, how many different areas there were to serve and be involved with other women business owners, also the women business owner community that you're involved with. Those relationships are fantastic. And there's mere facts of we don't have to be in the same industry, but we all come from the same place, and we wake up at 3:00 in the morning with the same thoughts, and just in that same natural place. But then again, also having a group of people that are applauding you along the way. So being involved in that and helping that grow, that's what kind of motivates me. And again, because as a new business owner myself, I still am with 5 years experience. But when I was first launching and kind of that deer in the headlights of, I have no idea. And again, not knowing things like video marketing could really help me, or what even SEO was. I just knew insurance, so being able to share that with other new business owners and watching them, grow and be successful.
Yeah, it's such a good thing with NABO is having that community of different industries that we can just honestly ask each other questions and give each other feedback. Because like you said, insurance. I know video marketing. Other people know bookkeeping.
Right.
We learn our expertise, and as we stay in our own lane. Like you should stay in your own lane, and then just find those people to help you, build that super highway that you need to your destination.
Absolutely.
And so, like I know, Nikki, I've had on the podcast talking about bookkeeping. She gave me lots of great tips and things. And so NABO has definitely been a great organization to grow and learn from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And looking at things through different lenses. And again, things some people don't even know about years into their business. But because I'm exposed to so many different industries and learning about what they do, I get exposed to it, which then helps me in my business.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me, what's one of your favorite tales that you've ever watched? So your favorite movie or favorite TV series?
Well, that's a good question. Well, my favorite TV series of late, I just totally binged it, is Poker Face.
Poker Face?
Yeah, on Peacock.
Okay.
With Natasha Lyonne.
Okay.
And first of all, she's super cool. Impeccable dresser. But just the kind of like murder mystery, but with a twist.
Fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Different stars throughout, different cameo appearances throughout. So really, really good series.
Excellent.
So I hope
I'll have to take a look at that one.
Definitely.
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, how about reading? What's your favorite book you've either ever read or heard?
As a practice, I try to read, is it like 30 Day Miracles by Gabby Bernstein, or, Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. I try to visit that every year just to make sure that I'm in a good mental space, grounded. But I've actually started reading, mostly listening, for me, for enjoyment. And Mr. and Mrs. American Pie
Okay.
And I couldn't tell you who the author was, but a lot of fun. And it's set in Arizona in the 60s.
Is it? Oh, fun.
So a lot of the landmarks are mentioned throughout here. And so, and I love Arizona. So just the fact of like seeing it back in the 60s, you know, and that and just a lot of fun. The characters are hilarious.
That's very cool. Are you from Arizona originally?
No,
or
not originally, but I've been here over 30 years.
Okay. Yeah,
So
it gets to a
I've-
point where you're like, I'm from Arizona.
Right. I mean, I grew up in all my adulthood here. And so
Yeah.
it's definitely home, but
Nice.
originally from Southern California.
Oh, okay. Well, it's fairly similar then. It wasn't too
Exactly.
far of
Yeah,
a
I don't
journey
know
for
weather.
you.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know
Similar
weather, so-
no super culture shock from, snow to no snow or anything like
Exactly.
that. That's
Exactly.
excellent.
Terrible drivers. Yes.
Terrible drivers all around, so you've gotten used to it.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's truly terrible drivers all around because I'm from back east and I felt like there were terrible drivers there. So
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. One of the things with insurance, and we hear people who have moved here
yes.
of just all the terrible drivers. I'm like, well, they're all from like your state.
Exactly. We're all
And my
transplant.
state,
Yes.
there, you know, it's
there's so
all-
many transplants. When I hear someone was born and raised in Arizona, those are the unique ones.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, they're the minority for sure.
Yes. And so you get to do this business with your husband, Jim, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting many times, and it's such a pleasure.
It's a
But I know
pity.
for most people, when I talk and say I work with my husband, they go, oh, how could you do that? Do you get the same reaction when you tell people?
I do. I usually just get the, trying to figure that one out. But it's great. Oddly, sometimes we don't see each other as much as one would think.
Oh, really?
With just different networking and trying to building a business. He'll get home at like 7:00 at night, from a networking event. I'll be out of the house early, that type of thing. So yeah.
So do you think that helps, or what would be advice that you have to people who maybe didn't want to do business with their spouse or are currently doing business with their spouse?
I think for us, it was a good game changer. When I was launching my business, he was working for actually State Farm Corporate, and they were disbanding the bank at the time. State Farm had a bank. And he said, why don't I just come and help you? And where I think it helped us, it provided that grit, because now that was all of our money, not just Suzi's money, our whole household money.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't just rely on Mother State Farm's paycheck coming every 2 weeks for Jim and the benefits. Like we had to make sure that we made it. So I think that also very much helped us. And from a leader perspective and a spouse perspective, I loved that Jim was able to flourish on his own. And, he came when he said, like, why don't I get licensed and help you out? I'm like, okay. Because he didn't realize he was a good salesperson and a great networker.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Like I get to benefit from that. But to really see him come into his own and really enjoy it, because that's what it's about, right? Doing what we enjoy every day. And so to see your significant other get to experience that, it's truly fulfilling.
That's excellent. I didn't realize that he wasn't already in the business. Because when I first met you, he was already there. Yeah. That was already part of the structure and everything. Right. So I didn't know that there was a separation. And, I can relate when it's all one paycheck, basically one pot. Right. It changes the game. It changes the structure. It changes all your decision making. Because then you go, okay, even with gift giving, it's like, okay, do you want this gift out of our account? Because there is no my only account.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
So how would you say, are the different roles, because you mentioned you both do networking. Do you both do the same things, or are there a separation of roles?
It's evolved. And we've had to really determine those separation of roles. And again, another good thing from the business owner perspective of really looking back and remembering why it is that you do what you do. So what I mean by that, from realizing he does networking very well, so really supporting him to get out and do that. So then therefore me being in the office, managing the team and meeting with customers, more, and then also being more of the numbers and sales manager role.
Okay.
Now that we are with also a sprinkling of things that of networking. Now that we're 5 years in and we've got a great established team who really don't want me at the office anymore, I can get out and also do a lot more networking. And
That's
so,
excellent. And
yeah.
you get to do the women networking. He can do the men's networking and together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
You gotta, divide and conquer.
Yep.
So that is excellent. And so what are some maybe misconceptions that people have about insurance? I think that insurance definitely has a bad rap in a sense. You're like, I'm forced to have it perhaps. And, it's just you pay it and then you never use it, So what do you think are some misconceptions that people have with the industry?
There definitely is. And yes, insurance is not a good investment until you need it. Then it's the best investment. That's truly the good way to look at it. I think the other thing, the misconception, and maybe more just enlightenment, we're all in it together. So it's not just about me driving and not getting in accidents. That helps, but it's all those that are around me as well. And so if you think, when you're on the 101 and all those accidents that happen, those are all contributing to our rates, sadly. And so until, we can all just get in that focus or embrace the Waymo. We're all in it together. So again, we save together and we spend together. And sadly, just right now, we're still spending together.
So we just need to all together become better drivers, be more aware of which direction on the highway you're supposed to go. And then you're saying that could potentially bring down rates as a whole, if as a whole we try better.
Yep, absolutely. And I would say, you love talking about what you do. I love talking about insurance and what it does. And so getting that better understanding. So reaching out to your agent to gain that better understanding. None of us like to pay any more for anything. I don't like to pay $5 for a dozen eggs when I used to pay 99 cents.
Yes.
But farmers can definitely tell me why that is, and we can explain, why that is as well. Because even with your vehicles, even windshields, now, with all of the new technology, which is fantastic, that also makes it more expensive.
Yeah, because now your windshield isn't just a piece of glass, it has tech in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes it more expensive to replace.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah.
And so I know too, I feel like with life insurance, I feel like that is a vehicle that people don't know much about until almost sometimes even too late. And so everyone is in their own unique situation. So, there's not a generality, but general rule of thumb, like when should people even think life insurance? Is it when you become an adult at 18 years old?
Even younger, honestly. It is for everyone. And there is definitely a benefit for it. First of all, when you're younger, it's cheaper. And it's before you've determined any sort of health issue, that type of thing. But even for kids, it's a great savings vessel. And because they're little and chances are they're not going to meet an untimely death anytime soon. So it's a great opportunity to save while not spending a lot on a policy. So there's definitely a lot of different avenues. But yeah, as far as filling whichever need that you have for it, and starting, even just right as they're born.
Yeah. And I had no idea that people could become like unqualified. So if you get cancer, you become unqualified. I had no idea of that.
Yeah. And it does. It seems very tragic in the fact of like, that's when you need it the most, right? Or as you're getting older or having, family, you're having more burdens of life that you don't want to leave to somebody else. Having that become more expensive. But again, it's the closer you are to, unfortunately, meeting your death, or having something happen. Right.
You start thinking life insurance when you're in your, 60s because you're like, oh, maybe in 30 years we're going to be there or less, but that is, you're going to be spending more is what it's sounding. So it's almost like a similar philosophy of like with business of choose your hard. So it's choose your hard. Do you want to, start at 18, spending $50 or less, a month that is then going to coverage or maybe even build wealth depending on, the package? Or do you want to spend, I don't even know what the price point would be, but much more and maybe not even get qualified if you wait until 60 years old when you think you're close to needing it. So it's like, choose your hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or look, that's perfectly stated, but in where you want that, how you want that money spent, that same $50 can go to bare minimum, or again, when you're 18 years old, can really get you a good policy that can basically fund something when you are 60. And so, with all of that growth, with all of those years of growth.
And when I think back to my 18-year-old self, like I actually feel like I had almost more disposable income then because I didn't have as many bills or as many responsibilities. I didn't have children to feed and things of those sorts that you were just literally like, I pay my rent, maybe buy some clothes, get my nails done, and then the rest was just savings. And so, you can really, in a younger age, almost consider of how can we think about investing in your own life, at that younger age.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned when we first started of not knowing about insurance, only knowing what my State Farm insurance agent taught me. Well, I was going through some files and came across my daughter's life insurance policy, which my State Farm agent at the time, she was starting to drive, and they said, we need to get life insurance on her. Oh, yeah. And so, presented me with a scenario, and I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. $25 a month. Absolutely, Mary. I will be down there. I'll sign the paperwork. So I was going through and I came across that. We might need to have a conversation
about our, we're making my brain go a little bit.
Yeah. So I came across that paperwork in that folder. I didn't even look at it. I got my policy. I knew what it was because we talked about it. I signed the papers and I opened it up, and my State Farm agent at the time had a policy for me, a quote for me, for, I think it was like a 1.5 million for $40 a month.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, why didn't I open that up? Because now knowing more about life insurance, the importance of it now, obviously, and having that need associated, but being quite a bit older from when my daughter was 16 years old, now almost 30. I can tell you I don't pay $44 a month for that same policy.
Oh, okay. So you saw the real life situation of waiting and it literally costing you. And look at you, like you are in great shape. Like you look and seem healthy to me, but just because of age, just because of statistically, realistically, we are that much closer, it changes. Oh,
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is definitely something to think about where I feel like there needs to be more education around insurance, like even in the high school level. Like I think senior year curriculum needs to completely change. We need to have a tax class. We need to have an insurance class. Like senior year should be a life preparation because you think, oh, college is supposed to prepare you for life. But A, not everyone goes to college. B, you're only gaining the knowledge that you want to.
In your field of study.
In your field of study. That those real life, maybe not so interesting to most, things like insurance need to be brought to the forefront earlier. I think if I wasn't in business at the age of 24, I wouldn't have thought insurance, life insurance. I wouldn't have thought of any of those things because I wasn't exposed to it.
Yeah.
And so what are ways you think that, maybe as a parent myself or other people watching, what should we be doing for our kids? Like, have you talked to your daughter about all the different insurances, and what are things that we can do as parents to even just help our children get more prepared for this type of stuff?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that we do at our office is it does start when they are driving. Okay. They're taking on an adult responsibility, right? So we offer it up to our parents, have them come in. We'll meet virtually, whatever they need. One, to meet, but we also show them the youthful drivers of where their insurance at, what mom and dad is paying for you to drive, all of those discounts that they've earned. But also, what happens if that messes up? My daughter definitely had senioritis, and so her grades went down. Okay. And so showing in those situations what that means to your premium and what mom and dad could potentially decide to do if they want to. They don't have to pay your premiums. You can pay that. So when you're thinking about, again, senioritis, maybe think differently. But then it also gives us that relationship, so one, how they contribute to their insurance. Another thing, as well is with the life insurance. And I will say, my daughter has been involved with insurance. She had to go at 16 when I signed my first life insurance for her as well. And so when she moved out on her own, we transferred all of the insurance to her so she could pay for it. And she made a point to say, and that's my life insurance too, right?
Nice.
And I love that because for her, that was her real adulting moment.
Yeah.
I'm taking that on, and I've made the adult decision I've got my apartment, I've got my car, I have my car insurance, but I have my life insurance too. Like I'm doing it,
That's
and
amazing.
so she probably reaffirmed that 3 times that that's my life insurance too. I was just like, that's fantastic.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And did I hear you correctly that grades make a difference in your kids' coverage?
They sure do.
Wow.
Yeah. State Farm does a really good job with our youthful drivers. So their grades, if you have them go through driver's training, that's fantastic. And then they do also get a what they call steer clear discount. So right out the gate for not having tickets and accidents, they get a discount. So it's really, really beneficial. So, and then also with taking ownership with the little Drive Safe and Save beacon.
Yeah, State Farm has definitely been using technology in a great way. I do love the app. So your app that you could just basically track your driving, your braking, your turning. Like I feel like I analyze my driving more than ever. So like, oh, what, you think I brake too hard?
Right. Or if you're like me afterwards, when your husband's driving, super fast and braking, you're like, wait a minute, no, it's my app.
Right, you're messing with me.
My score.
Yes, exactly. Right, we're trying to see who the blame is. Like, well, that was your trip, so that yes. No, but it's so cool just to be mindful of it. I think we always talk about mindfulness in the world, and that is such a time to be mindful of not only how are you driving on the road for other people's safety, but then even for your pocketbook. It makes a difference, and I appreciate that State Farm doesn't just make a generality. That they're not just like, okay, you're a driver, that's a woman that's driving a new car, 35 years old, here's your rate.
Yep.
And it's like, well, no, here's how you actually drive, with your car and so forth.
Exactly. It does make it more of a tailor rate, because there is the rate for a woman driving this type of vehicle living in this area.
Yeah.
But then there's Taylor. And this is when Taylor drives, and this is her driving habits. So Taylor gets this kind of discount.
Yes. And so why is it, though, that it's more money typically to insure a newer car versus an older car?
So when we are insuring your vehicle, we are basically saying that at that day, we are ready to replace that vehicle. So if you're paying $60,000, for that vehicle that you're just driving off the lot, we're prepared to write that check. Versus maybe the $24,000 vehicle that you traded in to get the $60,000 vehicle. So that's a big difference there, right?
That explanation made perfect sense of just the replacement. Because I'm like, I personally think my Pontiac G6 is the better ride, but it's an 09, comparative to the, 2023 van, So
Yep. And then also again, with all of those bells and whistles, which they're fantastic and they do provide great safety and awareness, but that costs a lot of money. Again, like going from on the 09 for a windshield, it is a piece of glass versus the 2023 that has the, sometimes even with the cameras in that and having to get it calibrated. So,
the heads-up displays.
Yes. So now you're talking about $3,500 for a windshield. So, and that's just a windshield. That's not even the entire rest of the vehicle. So it's all those other things.
And here in Arizona, we definitely get our replacement of windshields. It feels like all the construction along the highways all the time.
Yeah.
And so is that nationwide, or is that just Arizona that covers the windshields typically? And
that's a good question. It's not nationwide. It is state specific.
Wow.
Some states, they are covered, but not with just a windshield coverage to it. It goes off of your comprehensive coverage.
So what if I was driving in California and my windshield gets a crack? Since I'm insured in Arizona, would it still be covered?
It sure does. Yes.
Interesting.
So it kind of adapts to that state. So, and it does cover you. Yeah.
Okay. There's so
Good
many
question.
more things. Well, it just came up. I was like, you know what? Yeah, like it's just, how do things go cross lines? It's interesting. Like someone can have a prescription to, Adderall and they can go cross lines. But I have a friend who has a medical marijuana card whom, can't necessarily go cross lines with it.
Yeah.
And so it made my mind wonder about insurance. You never know.
Oh, great question. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So insurance is, you're insured indeed, and you can have that peace of mind.
Absolutely.
That your superheroes are there.
Exactly. So, and I will say that is another area where State Farm really comes into play, that's where the agent comes into play. So if there are any sort of gray lines, that's where we're there to advocate for you.
Excellent. And was it just because you had such a good relationship with your insurance agent that made you choose State Farm, or did you look at other organizations as well?
I was actually recruited by a competitor.
Oh.
And after I got my licensing, I was like, you know what? I've never even carried insurance from them. I've always had State. And that was my big girl moment when I bought my first house. I went right into a State Farm agency and was like, no, you're going to insure my place. Like that's important, right? So I want the best. And so like, if I wouldn't trust this other insurance company, why am I going to go and, peddle their products?
Right.
I've always believed in State Farm. And then I realized, like, after I got into insurance, just how much of a difference my agent made in really helping make sure that I was protected. And how much of an insurance believer I was. Like it pretty much had been there all along. Because anything that we talked about and they were like, yeah, this is what you want, that's what I had. I was already pretty well set. So
yeah, well, I've been a State Farm, customer for quite some time as well.
Yes,
so
even in Connecticut,
Maryland, actually.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yes.
So back in Maryland, and then when it was, big girl moment of taking on my own car insurance, it was like, okay, where do I go? Who do I look at? And I just know I really appreciated our, dialogue through NABO, and just realistically, the price was right. I felt like with insurance, it wasn't, that I'm choosing you, the person, all the time. It was, okay, what does it cover and what's the price? And State Farm, although being a very known corporate company, has some great prices on things.
Yeah, they do a really good job they sit back and watch what others do, others being other carriers, and then they make their move. And they also, they've learned by making mistakes as well. You've been with them a long time. So they did have quite a few years ago, back-to-back really, really big rate increases. And they lost a lot of really good customers. And I think they realized that.
I think there was a small stint, actually, where I wasn't with State Farm. And then I always
That's
will
probably why.
we'll let them, requote. I'm like, all right, let's see what's wrong. I'm like, oh, okay, it actually is cheaper now. But I think there actually was a stint where for my car insurance, it was major different to go. I forget who I ended up going with for a while, but yeah. They realized that they made a mistake by losing a lot of good customers. So they learned from that. And instead of reacting to their losses and claims, they just kind of would slowly ramp it up. And again, they would watch where other carriers, where they might react and really have a big rate increase, just kind of come in again with a smaller increase. Yeah. Cost of insurance has gone up, unfortunately. So is everything, though. As you mentioned, the eggs.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So everything. So, well, thank you so very much for being here. What would be one tip? It could be business, life, whatever. What would be one tip you'd want to leave people?
Broad tip would be to talk to your insurance expert. Advice is free. We love to talk about what we do. And having you protected means the world to us. Hearing that you've had or encountered a loss but don't have the coverage, it really does hurt us personally and professionally, of knowing the stress that someone endures because of that.
And could have been avoided.
Absolutely. So, and again, we just like to talk about insurance. Just give us the opportunity. Like, thank you for this opportunity to talk about insurance.
Of course. Did you ever meet Jake? Have you met Jake?
Oh my gosh. So we were at a convention a couple years ago, and we stood in line for an hour and a half to meet Jake because Sarah loves him. Sarah in our office loves him. So we stood in line to get an autograph from him for her. And we were like just at the door and they were like, sorry guys, Jake's gotta go.
No.
And so it kind of like have a picture of just like a little smooch of his head. But yeah.
Oh, is he as bulky as he looks like on TV? He's jacked up since he got that campaign.
Yes. Yeah, he really has. And he is a great guy though, and super appreciative. He really should be appreciative of State Farm and how much, it's done for him.
Yeah,
and
for an
really
actor,
is.
he's, having that campaign, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And he is truly grateful for it. He seems like an ultimately good person.
That's awesome. Yeah, I get to hang out with Patrick Mahomes sometimes on set.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know Aaron Rodgers isn't I don't think he's a spokesperson any longer, but even he was, again, just all of them, State Farm really seems to take care of their spokespeople. Yeah. And they gave testimonies about how they stood up and helped with, things in need that they, fires, unfortunately, in California at the time, how State Farm, donated more to a community that was devastated by fires.
I didn't even know that. Well, now I feel even better being a State Farm customer. So that's amazing. Well, hopefully next time you get to meet Jake and Sarah can actually like have an arm around him when taking a picture.
Yeah. We have a cutout, so she can.
That's right. You do have the cutout.
Yes, it is her goal. Well, to get what she will. She's actually driven around with Jake in her car. Like if we go to events,
HOV lane,
Exactly.
Oh, that's very cool. So if you want to meet at least the cutout version of Jake, make sure to reach out to Suzi Glover, State Farm in Scottsdale, Arizona. The whole staff is really just a pleasure to be around, and definitely the welcome fur babies. So thank you so much for being my neighbor basically when I need it, and just being a wonderful person and a wonderful insurance agent and business owner.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for letting me experience all of this.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for watching Tales with Taylor. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the Financial Potion YouTube channel to never miss an episode.